As we explore the key types such as numbers, strings, functions, objects, and arrays as we continue through this course, there's one thing that we're going to be doing in every single chapter which is very essential, and that's correctly learning how to type check a number. Now, it may be that you're getting some kind of API or something, or you're building an API, and you want to check the type of the argument that's actually coming through. As JavaScript's a dynamic language, we could pass a string or we could pass a number, and nothing's going to tell us otherwise. Now, if you went ahead and looked up how to check the type of something, you may be greeted with something called the type of. Now, if we go ahead and console log this, you're going to see the type of number. Now, because a number is a primitive, the type of operator works correctly. As we continue throughout every single chapter in this course, we're going to be using the same setup. We're going to check things with type of, and we'll see the differences and the nuances in the JavaScript language. Now, with numbers, using type of is a nice safe way to detect whether something's a number. And with our new conditional knowledge, we could say if the type of 99 does in fact equal a string value of number, so it's important to remember that type of gives us a string back, then we could go ahead and perform an operation. Now, there's a few other ways that we could also check whether something is a number, and I just want to make sure that you understand all the different ways that you can type check things in the JavaScript language. We're going to introduce you to something called the instance of. So instance of is a keyword in JavaScript similar to the type of keyword. Now, if you're coming from another programming language background, hearing words such as instances will be something that you already understand. Now, we can say, is 99 an instance of number? Now, in JavaScript, we have already looked at this number. It's a type of function that's globally available to us, and we're simply checking whether our number literal is an instance of this number. And we've seen how to create numbers by calling the square brackets and passing strings or, in fact, normal numbers into this number function. So what do you think is going to happen when we press save? Are we going to get true or are we going to get false? Now, if you guessed false, you'd be 100% correct. 99 is a literal value. It is not an instance of this number. So you may be then thinking, okay, maybe if we go and create a number via number, and we could even add it as a string if we like, and say instance of a number, when we save this out as well, we're also going to see false. Now, this is because of the way that instances work and the new keyword in JavaScript. We're not going to cover the new keyword deeply in this course. We'll be doing it in the next course as you continue your journey learning JavaScript. But for now, we're going to show you how to create a new instance. And we did this at the beginning of this numbers chapter anyway. So we'll do our number again, and we'll say instance of, and followed by number. When we save this, we will see true in the console. Now, if you remember back to the beginning of this chapter, this new number I mentioned was kind of a pointless exercise. There's not any benefit. There's no reason that we want to do it. There's no number methods that we might want to call. So it's kind of a pointless way of doing things. But it's good to show you what an instance is. And by creating a new instance of number, it becomes valid that our number returned is in fact an instance of this capital N number. Now, if you've ever done something like this before, you may have done object and then to string. Now, this is completely irrelevant to numbers. This is just a safe way and probably the safest way that we can easily and reliably type check any kind of value in JavaScript and get a very accurate representation of what it is. Now, the type of operator works very well with numbers. You can see we have the first log, which gives us number. That is 100% correct. So the takeaway from this video is we can use the type of operator safely with any number that we have. And this also works for things such as decimals. So if we save this out, we're going to get number back again. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's only one type of number in JavaScript, and whether it's a proper integer or a floating point number, they are both considered as numbers. So why am I showing you this object dot to string? Now, you may have seen this before if you've been working with JavaScript, this square bracket object with a capital object following it. So what does this mean? This is actually what we get back when we convert something to a string. It just returns us this string back. Now, what we can in fact do, instead of accessing this object directly, we can safely access the object.prototype. And we haven't come onto this global object yet, but it exists much like this number does. Now, previously when we did this creates a new object, which is kind of pointless, so we might as well just access the prototype directly and call this .toString function. As we progress through the course, what we're going to learn about is something called .call, which changes the execution context. Now, that may go straight over your head, which is absolutely fine. We're going to come onto it later, but this piece of code, this one line, is the safest way that you can detect any type in JavaScript. So let's go ahead and do 99 and save it out. What we now get is a very nice representation from the constructor of object and then number. Now, we haven't talked about arrays or objects yet, and I'll leave it and you can play around with it if you like. But this is a really nice and safe way of detecting if something is in fact of a particular type. So what we could do is in fact use a string slice, and we're going to learn about slice in the next chapter where we dive into strings, and we can pass 8 and -1 as the arguments. Now, this returns us the word number, so we could say equals 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 and then number, and we get true. So you can see how we could create a switch case that may, for example, convert our particular type into a string, but it changes the execution context and takes the constructor value from the number. Then we're simply slicing the values that we do not want out of the string. So we're essentially slicing out those object pieces and the space and that last square bracket. If you didn't want to do the slice, you could of course remove that, and we would have to check that the string equals object number, which it successfully does. So you can have a read more about this technique by simply having a look online as well. But for now, we will leave it in place as a successful mission. We've completed the mission of understanding how to correctly type check numbers. And as we continue through the course, we'll see how things such as type of do not allow us to correctly type check certain aspects of JavaScript, and this very strange looking way of object prototype to string call does in fact allow us to do it. So that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one where we're going to have a look at some of the methods on the number object.